So you got me today to talk to you about preparing your child for college. So we're going to have a short discussion. If you have questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat and we'll talk story about them. So as we're preparing our kiddos for community college or even a four-year college, if that's what they want to do, and remember that if your kiddo is on certificate track, they can still go to community college. If they do not graduate with a diploma, they can't move on to a four-year college because that diploma is required. But even on certificate, even if they didn't graduate, they can go to community college. It's not a problem. Excuse me. So we're wanting to identify their strengths and their challenges and what those might look like so we can build on them early, talk to them about college early on so that there's maybe an expectation that they will go or that we believe in them that they can go. You want to review that IEP or your 504 plan and then note what accommodations work. The IEP is not going to follow them to college. IEP is only for Department of Education public school. So it's not going to follow them, but you can look in the IEP and say, hey, this accommodation really helped them. This extra time on the test is what they needed. So you might then take that to the disability office and say, this adult student now needs some extra time on their testing. You need to talk to your child about what kind of career goals they have and what classes are needed to get there. That's also if you're with DVR, Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, they can help pay for community college and they're going to want to know what that job looks like so that we can take classes to get there. If your kiddo wants to be in food and then they want to take, a class in marketing, maybe that would join together because they're going to have their own business, but maybe a different class wouldn't. So it does kind of have to follow the path, but find where their interest is. Start there. If they love to draw, take a drawing class at community college and see how that goes. And think about what kind of supports are going to help them when they're going off to college. And again, remembering there's no IEPs there. Excuse me. We want to be thinking about building those self-advocacy skills. Does your child know how to explain what their disability is or what their needs are? Can they request an accommodation? Because when you get up to the college level, it's not like, hey, mom and dad, come in and tell us what the kid needs. It is up to that adult student to go in and say what it is they need. They need to self-identify and they need to say what supports they need. Now, parents can go and talk to the disability office with the student's permission, but it really is the student voice that they want to hear. They don't want to hear our voices anymore. They want it to focus on the student. So working through these high school years to have your child be able to explain what their disability is or explain what kind of accommodations they need to help them learn is going to help them not only in college, but really in adult life. If they're going to be working, they need to tell their employer, these are some of the things that help me to be a better worker. Where to go when they need help for these things, they're going to go to that disability office. There's a TRIO office on many of our community college campuses. And it's an office for kind of disadvantaged, but that includes our kids with disabilities. They've got great tutoring programs. When we went to Windward Community College to the TRIO office, they're like, we've got food here and drinks here so that kids, we don't want them to be hungry going to class. So they've got a lot of opportunities for tutoring, but also just supporting the student. And then each of our campuses have tutoring programs. So if your kid needed some extra one-to-one help with math or anything else, they can go and get that extra support. But they have to be able to ask for it. And that's where that self-advocacy skill really comes into place. Preparing them for academics, even if your kid is on a certificate track, they need to know how to manage their time, how to organize. So what are you going to use for that? Is that a visual planner? Is that a visual schedule? Is it something that Alexa helps them to do? Do they understand or have a good grasp on their study skills? Do they know how to take notes, or can we use technology to take notes for them? In college, you can actually get a note taker for them as an accommodation if they have a hard time, kind of writing down My son is deaf, and so processing what he's hearing through his hearing aids and writing at the same time was a challenge, and sometimes a note taker was a benefit to him. Technology training. Do they need a screen reader? Do they need to use a speech to text technology or text to speech technology for them? So helping them prepare in high school when we have supports around us to prepare them for when they get to the college level. Then you want to connect to that disability services office. All of our UH community colleges and UH itself has a disability office, so you can make an appointment. Windward Community College, Roy Inouye is the head guy there, and he told me, hey, parents, if you want to come up there and visit, they're open 7 days a week. So you can come, but just in the springtime, Saturdays are challenging because they're doing taxes. But you can still make an appointment. That's what we did. We went up and met them, my husband and I, with my son to meet with them, find out more about their program. And then my son met with the counselor at the college and gave approval for us to be in on those meetings. So this is where you can have your kiddo tell them what kind of accommodations it's going to help them. The disability office itself is going to talk to the student through the counselor, find out what accommodations they need. I need extra time on a test. They write something out and they send it to the professor. So it's not your student telling the professor, I need extra time on a test. It's your student going to the disability office saying, I have a disability, I need more time on a test, and they write a letter and send it to the professor. And you do that every semester. And you can talk to them about what accommodations your school might have. So then they would do an intake with the Disability Services Office. You make an appointment. Again, you can go together with them, but when they're talking with the counselors and things, you need to have the students say, I want my parent to be here. And that's okay for them to do that. But otherwise, because they're an adult, a student, it's not like you can go in there and be their voice anymore. They have to be able to use their own voice and say, I want my parent here to help me understand, and also for the parent to know, what those expectations are. So the student then schedules an appointment with the counselor, and then the disability support office does the paperwork and sends it to the professors. So here's a sample of college accommodations. We got this off of some slides that were done a couple of years ago. You can find them on the Footsteps to Transition.weebly.com website. So the slides are there. We also did some workshops and videos that are there, so you can learn more about what the disability offices do. But here's some samples of accommodations. You can get a note taker or a scribe. You can get that extended time on test. You could get an ASL interpreter or have closed captions up on something if they're showing a movie in the classroom. Furniture, I had a friend who had a hard time sitting on those hard chairs in the lecture hall, and she had a really bad back, and she had a documented disability that she could say, I have a hard time sitting, in these chairs for this extended time, and they were able to bring in a different chair for her to use. So that's what furniture means. Auxiliary aids like a calculator, alternative format, so that could be Braille, that could be large text. But they're not going to reduce the textbook reading level like we might do in high school. And then you also might be able to ask for a separate, quieter testing site instead of being in a big noisy room. Another project or program that your child could access is the post-secondary support project. That's out of UH Manoa, but they work with all of the community colleges around the state. We were on Oahu, and we just moved to the Big Island last year. My son was taking classes at Windward Community College. Then he came over here and took classes at Hilo, and he had a peer mentor at both locations. So they are available throughout the state. Usually it's a way to get in if your kid has DDD, they can get in through the post-secondary support. If they have DVR services, if they're a DVR client, they get in through there. But there's other doors. You just have to talk with them, work with them to get in through their project. they have peer mentors. So these are students that are in college going to UH or University of Hilo or even the community colleges, and they are current students. And so they are a peer mentor and they're working with our kiddos. They are helping them navigate the campus. They're helping them communicate with the professor. So she would meet with my son once a week or once a week, once every 2 weeks, and say, okay, do you have a question for the professor? Let's do an email together. So she would help him to write that email professionally, so that he could get the information he needed. They also work with them on growing their independent skills and planning for preps and prep for projects, but they do not provide tutoring. So if he had, uh, a paper due, they are not going to sit there and go through the data and help them write the paper, but she would sit and say, oh, when is the paper due? When is the draft due? Let's backtrack that on the visual calendar so that we can say how much time we need. This is when you need to start. This is when you need to have your first draft. This is when you need to have it turned in. She can help with those sorts of organizational things, but not with the actual tutoring. And I've got a link to this on the last slide. Okay, so then just sort of preparing early. You can start thinking about community college when your kid's a junior in high school. Why not? Because that it sets up expectation for you, for the school, for the student, that this is going to be something that's coming up. And so you can start walking around the campus. You can visit the disability office. If they have a TRIO office, you can visit that. For parents, take those FAFSA workshops. Got a link for colleges within reach at the end of the slides, and take 3 of them. I think I took 3 or 4 of those workshops over and over because that is a really intensive process to fill out a FAFSA. So take those classes, they're free, those workshops, talk to people about it in order to, even if your kid has DVR services and they're going to pay for community college, they still want you to try, to apply for FAFSA because any support that we can get from the Fed government is help that our state doesn't have to kick in. You want to connect early to your high school counselors for support. Sometimes the school counselors don't, I don't want to say think about, sometimes our kids aren't always in the mix. When colleges come to the schools to visit, kids will take time out and go and visit and see like, oh, this college is here, this college is here, they're coming to talk. So we want to connect our kids to the school counselor early so that the school counselors can say, hey, you live here, Windward is coming to talk, and let's get you over there to see them. They can also help with filling out the FAFSA. They can help with the applications for college. So connect to your high school counselor. They can be a really big support for you and your student. Start with classes that they like and see how that goes and build on it. So if they don't really like math, then don't start with math because that might put them off of college. If they like something else, take one of those electives. That's okay. If you take something that they like and they get through it, then they're excited to try more and to try for the harder things. So it's okay to not jump right in. And college, you can take years to get your degree. You don't have to, boom, boom, boom. If you want to get that 2-year degree, you can do it in 3 years or you can do it in 4 years. You don't have to do it right away. And then encourage your student, your child to join organizations, student clubs, student groups. They have disability groups, just places where they can make friends. They can be seen by other students that they're going to be walking around. They can make friends. It's just a nice thing to do. They're part of that community. We always want our kids to be part of our communities and our communities to be part of our kids. And then here's some resources. So this is going to be posted up on the Footsteps website. And these are all clickable links. So here's the Windward Community College Disability Office because we're Windward District host this year. But here's also the post-secondary support program. You can watch the videos on our Footsteps to Transition website. And also the slides there when we talked about what the disability service does, what that intake process looks like. She's got a really great slide deck about all of that. If you want to learn more about the FAFSA, that's the colleges within reach websites. And then there's some great national websites for students to go to college. And then I really liked this one with understood.com. It's one of our favorite website, kind of a go-to. And they have the 7 things to know about students with disabilities going to college. So I think that was my last one. So I'm going to stop. Look at me. I've got 10 minutes or so. Do we have questions? Questions from our group here today? Anybody have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. You said for the UH post-secondary support project, there are alternative ways to get in. Would you just contact that office, or how would that work?
Yes, contact them and see if there's, what door you come in through. If your child is with DD, Developmental Disability Division, they have a contract with them. You could also apply for DVR services to see if they could become a client there, and that's another doorway in. But if you're not with any of those 2 programs, yeah, definitely contact Eric Folk is the program director there, and talk to him about how your kiddo could get into that program.
Is Eric Folk in particular at one of the colleges, or is he just in charge of it for all of the UH system?
He's in charge of it for the whole UH system. So he's at UH Manoa.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Oh, Cheryl says DVR does not currently have a contract with the PSP. That's okay. Still contact Eric, contact the program, and see how you can get in there. Yeah, no problemo. The answer, my personal philosophy is the answer is always no unless you ask, right? So go ask and see if there's how they could get in. Oh, thank you, Michelle, for dropping that link in the chat to the post-secondary support project. Annette said if you enjoy music, playing an instrument, band is what got her kiddo through high school. Band can also be done in college. So absolutely find those things that are interesting to them, find those strengths and build upon them. If you say, hey, you like to play in band in high school, guess what? You could play an instrument in college too. That might be the thing that gets them excited about going and taking some classes in college. And Cheryl says, if your student's on certificate track and has a desire to attend college, it's highly recommended to have them exposed in high school academic class like math and English. So absolutely. Can you take English if you're not if on certificate track and not earning credit? Yes. Yes, you can. They could take that as an elective. They can take it as a non-credit course just to be included and be exposed to the workload that's happening there. Absolutely. Thank you, Cheryl. And art classes are a great place too. Does anybody else have questions about kind of preparing our kids for college, what that might look like when they go? We had DVR services as well. And so for our kiddo, DVR helped us to pay for college classes as long as they aligned with what his employment goals were. And then he could take those classes. He wants to work in media and film, and so he was taking creative media classes as part of the AA. Then that also includes art. I'm sorry, and English and history and social sciences and things like that. So well-rounded. So talk to your DVR counselor if you have one to see what that might look like, if that helps prepare them for getting a certificate for a job or just being prepared to get into the workforce. It's a process, but don't think just because your kiddo is on certificate that they cannot go. Some kids I know a few kids that even audit some classes, so they're not getting a credit, they're just auditing a class. That might be an option too, if like I'm not sure if they could do the work and do I want to pay the money for them to go and they can't do the work, then talk to your disability office and see if they can audit one of the classes and see if that encourages them, like I really liked going, this might work out for me, and then pay for the next one. Definitely have options. Talk to your school counselors.